friends. My name is David McLeod, and I am your life mastery coach and author of the brand new book, Gifts of Wisdom, Practices for Healing and Empowerment, which finally, well, actually, it hit #1 international bestseller on Amazon. So I'd love for you to get over and grab a copy of that if you're interested. Also, I'm one of the co-authors of the best-selling series, The Wellness Universe Guide to Complete Self-Care, and I'm a senior partner at The Wellness Universe. Welcome to Life Mastery TV, your source for inspiration, empowerment, and fulfillment. Today, we embark on episode number 257, and our title today is Harnessing the Secret to Happiness. So, let's start with a question. What is the one thing that everyone wants and most people have difficulty finding? Well, there may be many answers to this question, but I think the one word that probably appears near the top of everybody's list is happiness. For some, happiness is tied to success or material wealth. For others, it's found in love, peace, or a sense of purpose. Yet, despite our efforts to chase it, true and lasting happiness often seems elusive. The more we search for it outside of ourselves, the harder it is to attain, it seems. But what if happiness isn't something to be hunted or earned, but rather something we can discover within? What if happiness announces itself naturally as we become more fully aligned with the core of who we really are? An intriguing thought, don't you think? So for this episode of Life Mastery TV, I've invited back my good friend and colleague, Maggie Sarfo, to share her perspective on this topic. Maggie is an accomplished mentor, coach, author, and certified Akashic Records consultant who just published her brand new book, The One Secret to Happiness. So much of our conversation today will be focused on that book and some of the beautiful wisdom that she has shared there. So please welcome Maggie back to the program.
Hello.
Hey there, Maggie. Love to see your beautiful smile. Thank you so much for joining me again today, and congratulations on your brand new book.
Thank you so much, David. The book is over here.
Yeah. Sure. Bring that up front close so we can see the title or the cover.
There we go. It's quite bright, so you won't miss it. It's The One Secret to Happiness.
Right. Discover your innate ability to take life to the next level. Beautiful.
Absolutely.
So congratulations. Now, let me ask you something. I guess the first thing I want to ask, I know that you've been doing coaching work and Akashic Records work for quite a while now. Mm-hmm. But what was it that led you, that motivated you, that inspired you to write a book in the first place and to bring the wisdom to the people in this manner?
Thank you. So this book, I believe it was, well, it's like most people, it's been in me for a while. I've been meaning to write it for a while, but, I was speaking to an editor over the weekend and he said, the time you publish your book is always the right time to publish your books. So I feel that I was kind of ready to bring this book into the world. After a period of time, the book is a combination of my own stories from my clients as we go through our own self-transformation journeys. And then I do introduce a practice, David, a practice which is part of a program that I use in my work. It's called the Create Balance Healing and Mentoring Program. But I feel that the core essence of true happiness comes from being balanced in a way. And I don't want to kind of give the secret away here before we get to it. But yeah, it's a combination of various.
Darn, I was going to ask you, what is the one secret to happiness?
and
I'm sure we'll get to it. We'll certainly touch on it as we proceed.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and it's not just about that. It's a combination of other things. Towards the end of the book, I just go into kind of a non-fiction mode, a fiction mode where, there's a character that evolves through it called a Kiko. And then we go through a Kiko story through another practice, which is how we can create more of our desired life experiences. So yeah, so there's a lot in here.
Oh, I'm sure there is. And I can't, now that I know, I thought when I was last speaking to you, for some reason, I thought the book still had yet to be published. So I'm definitely going to grab a copy of that when I get a chance. And geez, maybe I can get you to sign a copy for me.
Oh yeah, I can. Yeah, David, absolutely. I can easily I can easily do that. I do have
Wow.
a link.
It's amazing what happens when you ask for things, right?
Yes. Well, they say it's ask and you are giving or whatever. So
That's right. That's right. I guess so let me understand a little bit about your story that that led you to this place where you are now able to write a book about the secret to happiness.
I feel that as we go through life, our definition of happiness changes. I think we have different stages of our lives where we ideally focus our energy in other areas of our lives. That could mean that another part of our life could be lopsided in terms of not as balanced, And personally, I feel that during the initial days of my career and for a number of years, I really have always been passionate about my work and how I show up in the world, and I'm one of those who always enjoy everything that I do. And so I feel that as I was going through, really being really successful in, say, my career, I spent 15 years in the corporate world until 2016 when I set up my business. My business is now 8 years old since then. But I feel that at some point I gave so much energy into work and not enough energy into my personal relationships, my intimate relationship. And it came to a point where I felt a bit lopsided. And I felt that, and then reflecting on that and going through other journeys to bring that balance back into my life, which for me made me more in my happier state, a balanced, consistent, happier state. I feel that that's part of what we are all looking for. Speaking to a lot of clients, though, since 2016, going through different forms of transitions in their lives, I realized that a good aspect of being truly happy is bringing what we call emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual aspects of the self back into balance. And so, through the book, we look at what that really means. We look at what each of those bodies means. So the mental body, the emotional body, physical and spiritual. And then I share a way that we can, in a way, mentor ourselves back into balance every time we feel we're going out of kilter.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that you mentioned the 4 aspects of being. Many people just stick with 3, mind, body, and soul kind of thing. And I like to have that 4th part and I refer to it as heart, body, mind, and soul. And you talked about, emotional, physical, mental, and spiritual, which I think, so it's interesting that you and I are on the same wavelength in that regard. And all of my work actually focuses on those four quadrants, if you like. It's not even really quadrants. It's more like, for me, it's more like a pyramid. Actually, that's not even right. A tetrahedron, because it's a triangular base and triangular sides. And so you've got the physical, the mental, and the emotional on the base, and you've got the spiritual kind of at the top, guiding everything.
Yeah.
That's how I view it. Yeah.
You must have read my book.
Well, maybe you channeled me when you wrote it.
We always align, David, you and I, in terms of, how we look at, aspects of our work and our life. But so again, so what I do explain is that, yes, in order to have that earthly existence, being spiritual beings, having an amazing earthly experience, It's about, making sure that the physical, mental, and emotional, or in your words, the heart, mind, and
Body.
body
Yep.
are connected to the spirit self.
Right.
And so then the spirit self is kind of the governor. And when you don't bring it in, then the experiences of the physical body are not as complete. And again, that could cause the imbalance and cause you to be unhappy.
Yeah, absolutely right. Absolutely right. Yeah, total alignment with what you're saying. To me, there's also the components of, in that lower triangular plane that I talk about, that's where feelings exist. And feelings are just combinations of emotion, sensation, and thought, which are the components, the emotion being the heart, the sensations being the body, and the thought being the mind. But
Absolutely.
when you bring in the energy of the soul, the spiritual aspect, that brings in intuition, which is the communication channel that supports the other thing. And so people, they use the word intuition, they use the word soul, they use the word spirit, but really I think we're all talking about the same thing, even though we might have different words to describe it.
Yes.
So I think that's really fascinating.
Absolutely. And I feel that, especially when any of those three within your triangle are not in a happy place, if we are not connected to the spirit aspect of us, it makes us think that what we are experiencing is the reality. And so then we get looped into this vicious cycle or repeated pattern, that it's not. But when you are connected to the spirit aspect as well, then you know that yes, reality, physical reality can be reality, but you have the ability to transform it. And so again, one thing that I proceed to kind of encourage readers to explore is to develop further their ability to bring that intuition to say, for instance, where am I on my emotional body, or where am I in terms of my heart experience at the moment, or my feelings at the moment. And I use like a create balance scale. I call it the create balance healing scale, for them to then sense a number that comes to them. So for instance, if you get a number like 8 or 7, the higher the number is from 1 to 10, the higher the number, the lower you are in terms of being happy or being in your balanced state. And so the idea is that once you intuitively get that number, you ask for your divine self to then heal you and bring you back into 1, which is kind of the highest point of that scale, and then move you into 0 being that what I call the 0 state of consciousness, which is where you fully connected with your spirit self, and from that place you can start to create whatever it is that you want to create. So so that's some of the things that you get to experience in the book.
Yeah, that's pretty fascinating. I find it interesting that you kind of use 0 as your guiding point, because really, when you think about it, whenever you have an emotional experience of some kind, it's a form of agitation, isn't it? We call it, emotions are energy in motion. Well, if it's moving, that means we've got these waves, so it's up and down. It's kind of agitated. Whereas when you can bring that down to a quiet level by meditating or whatever you do, what you're actually doing is reducing the energy level. I don't like to use the word 0, because people think, well, if I don't have any energy moving, I'm dead. But I don't want people to think that way. It's moving towards stillness, right? So the agitation goes away. The emotional energy kind of settles. The sensations in your body kind of drop away. The thoughts tend to quiet on their own. Everything. And you get to that place of complete stillness, which is, in my view, I call that bliss. I think that's what bliss really is. It,
Yeah.
right. Well, I mean, even when you think about the word happiness, I mean, often people think of happiness as, oh, I'm jumping for joy. Well, think about that. Isn't that a form of agitation?
Yeah. 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 Whether, you know, there's a positive agitation and a not so positive agitation.
Correct.
But again,
yeah,
that's the nature of life, right? Everything has its polar opposite. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I do use a combination of kind of maybe spiritual words or conscious words and kind of quantum science words, which is where the zero field of consciousness come in.
Sure.
But yeah,
Yeah.
and stillness could be like your neutralized state, you know, so bringing yourself from the state of emotional agitation to your neutralized state or your still state. And then from there, you are in that place where you can create the new thing that you want. Or something that you have, well, a feeling or an experience that you've experienced before, but you've moved away from it because of one reason or the other, and you want to come back to it. From that zero field or from that stillness space, you can create that again.
Right. Okay, so now that we've gotten to this point, we seem to have dived right into the deep end.
Yes.
I would like to maybe let's talk a little bit about what happiness really is. Obviously, you mentioned earlier that each of us, we go through transitions in our life, and we may find that our definition of happiness changes over time.
Yes.
Is there a kind of a general way that happiness can be described that most people would resonate with? Have you come up with that kind of a definition yet?
Good question. I feel that happiness, I mean, one thing that I talk about a lot as part of this is the fact that happiness can be quite subjective. So I bring different people's opinions and different maybe definitions of happiness from that perspective of happiness is that state where you feel, I don't know, I could use the word most aligned with yourself. Is that space where you don't feel like you are in need of anything else. I think happiness is an inside job.
Yeah,
and whereas people may define happiness as external or what other people see about them, I think increasingly we are coming back to that state where it really doesn't matter what other people are thinking about you if you feel that sense of fulfillment inside yourself, right? It does mean that your material needs are met, your emotional needs are met, your physical needs or intellectual needs are met, as well as anything else that you require to be met for you to feel that sense of contentness inside yourself. But yeah, I find that throughout this book, as I was doing the research, as I was looking at stories, even my own story, I found that happiness, or the definition of happiness, can be very subjective. But what is objective about it is a state that brings you into that state where you don't feel like you want anything because you are happy within yourself.
Right. It's interesting. This morning, I was doing a meditation, and this very subject came up for me. I do these meditations, and sometimes I have a conversation with a channeled being that I have now come to know as Omnitude. And I said, so why is it that people chase happiness? And that was my question. Why do we chase happiness? And some of the stuff that came out just blew my mind. I thought, wow, that's really, really interesting. I mean, what you're saying now coincides to a great degree with what I was hearing during my meditation this morning. So obviously I'm onto something, and you're onto something, and I think it's really important. This is why I think I've come to believe that maybe happiness Happiness is our 3D perspective of bliss. That's what I think. It's really, when we're chasing happiness, often we're looking for something outside of ourselves that we think is going to bring us pleasure. It's going to bring us happiness. It's going to bring us joy. It's going to do whatever. And the problem with that is all of those little experiences are time limited. They're just temporary. They're not. You're not going to find permanent happiness by chasing something that's outside of yourself.
Externals. Yeah.
Right. And you're talking about this yourself in your own languaging about realigning with your spirit and bringing connection and getting back into that, what you're calling that 0 point field, and that place of stillness, that place of supreme consciousness, that place of infinite awareness.
I like
effectively that is your Akashic field right there, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, it is. And yeah, it is if you know it, or if it means something to you. But if not, then it's just your space of infinite consciousness. Yes.
Yeah. And so when you get there, that is the bliss that you can experience anytime you want, and it's always there.
Yes.
There is no chasing required. In fact, it's the exact opposite of chasing. It's kind of like saying, all right, I'm going to just settle down, and just let the bliss come back into your awareness.
Yeah.
And it's there.
Yeah. And that's where sustained happiness comes from as well, because like we said, a lot of the external sources of happiness can be short term, or even if it's long term, it does go through phases. But when you are able to connect with the internal happiness, we move into what I call, embodying that happiness, right? Because all the ideals that we want in our life, we can embody them. And not until we embody them truly, we are always in that kind of journey of up and down, like a shifting sand. But as soon as we are able to bring it in to that state, then whatever you want to experience, including the material essences that we need in our lives, because they are also important, kind of become sustained, and they stop that journey of up and down because you have embodied it, right? So when you embody your wealth properly, it will then stay consistently, and even if you were to lose it, you will also not go into that deep state of emotional distress because you lost it, because you know that you are in that state, you have embodied that. And it will also explain why you will quickly come back to that same state of wealth should you choose to. So right. I feel that that's how it works.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And as you were speaking, I noticed in my mind I had an image of a skiing analogy. The idea of when I'm learning how to ski a difficult terrain, I tend to do a lot of this stuff left and right and stuff. But as I get more accustomed to the movement, I learn how to go straight down the hill. Even when there's lots of bumps on either side of me, I learn to go straight down the hill. And that just comes with practice. And when I'm going straight down the hill, then I realize these bumps don't matter. They don't, even though they exist, and other people may be struggling with those bumps. I don't have to, because I found my line. I found that direct line that follows my spirit.
Yes.
That's really fascinating. I'm surprised that image came up for me. That's really cool. And by the way, don't mistake me for someone who knows how to ski. I have done it. I was reasonably good, but not a top-notch skier by any stretch of the imagination.
I have no idea what kind of images I was starting to see. I was like, David, almost a professional skier.
Yeah. No, I'm just an ordinary guy who has fun with life to the maximum extent possible.
Very important.
Yep. All right, so talk a little bit more now about this whole balance idea. I want to understand more about what you mean in that. I mean, I have a sense of what you want to say about that, but I think maybe if you could just clarify and describe it in more detail, that would be helpful.
Mhm. So when I talk about balance, it's not necessarily, if we look at the four aspects of the self: emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual, we're looking at 25% each. Not at all. What I mean by balance is more of kind of harmonic awareness, harmonic balance.
I like
We
that
do,
word. I like that.
yeah. We do go through states where perhaps we need to put our energy towards something more than something else, but it's because that is what is needed, right? So take, for example, a woman who has a baby will have a lot more energy going towards nurturing that baby, especially in the initial, days and months and years of the baby's life, right? So does that mean that they are completely imbalanced? They are not, but it's important for them to have that awareness and not let go of the other aspects of, so the other aspects of the self that we're talking about here. So
Right.
long as we have that awareness that, yes, for this period of time, going to put a lot of energy into this because that is what is required. So long as they know that, then they are always aware of it and they can always look at bringing themselves back into balance. In the book, when I talk about balance, bringing yourself from wherever you are, when you intuitively sense where your emotional body is, where your mental body is, where your physical body is, and then working yourself all the way to one, and then as much as possible into the zero state or the neutralized state, or the stillness state, means that you, even if it's not possible to align all the aspects of your life in, you are still balanced, even though it will not look like that because physically your energy goes into another area. Let's take, for example, David, for instance, you recently led the book, the wisdom,
Gifts of Wisdom, yeah.
Gifts of Wisdom, beautiful book that I had the opportunity to read. Is an incredible book. So of course, because it's like a project, right? Over a period of time, a lot of your energy will go to that. Does that mean that you are totally neglecting all your other side? Say, just even if we're looking at just your work, does that mean you're neglecting your one-to-one clients or whatever? Not necessarily, so long as you have the awareness of, you are going to keep it as balanced as you can until a time where you can come back into the state of balance. But balance in its simplest form is being in harmonic balance, which means your emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual aspects of the self are in relatively equal states for you to feel that sense of contentment and alignment within yourself.
Yeah, I love that phrase, harmonic balance. The implication being that it's kind of like a beautiful song that you're singing, and each element contributes its own harmonic part to the tune, and sometimes that part might go silent completely, or sometimes all four of them will be singing together and creating a beautiful harmony. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. I like that. And the other thing that you mentioned that I think is really important for people to hear, and I'm going to repeat it, is awareness.
Yes.
It seems that awareness is like the number one requirement for any form of personal growth, really. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I agree. And awareness is what allows us to not go completely out of balance, right?
Right.
When we are imbalanced is because we didn't pay attention to, or we did not have the full awareness, or even if we did, we ignored it, and so then we did not have the awareness. And so awareness is at the core of everything. And the so long as you have an understanding that these aspects of your life have to be relatively in balance, then you are able to sense every time you feel a bit uneasy, that is yourself kind of giving you a knock on your hat to say, hey, pay attention, come back on track. And with that awareness, you go and investigate which aspect of the 4 aspects of me is going out of kilter. And then you can work towards bringing it into balance. And if it's not at all completely possible, that where it can come up to, given where your energy is in terms of other things, it's fine. Because like you said, at some point the alto singer needs to mellow their voice a bit for the bass to come up or whatever, but that is still in harmony. Is the awareness we haven't completely forgotten that this person is also part of the tune that we're creating together.
Right. Yeah. That's really beautiful. I know in my own coaching and my own life mastery paradigm, awareness is like the base camp. It forms the foundation for everything else. And all of my other keys to life mastery have to do with bringing that awareness into different aspects. So it begins with acceptance. I mean, you can't really do anything with life until you accept what is right now. You can't change anything until you know what it is you're trying to change. So how can you change something if you haven't accepted it?
Exactly.
Then the next phase, of course, once you've gotten into acceptance, now you can begin looking more closely at who you really are. So that becomes identity, becomes the next step. And then once you have a sense of that, now you can start looking at your choices and the impacts they create.
Yeah.
And then you can start saying, oh, I don't really like my choices too much. So you start maybe beating up on yourself. No. Now is when we move into compassion and self-compassion, and then forgiveness, right? Once you get past those 5 initial steps, now you can move into purpose and understand your real reason for being here. And when you understand your purpose, now you can start thinking in terms of integrity, because now when you've got a purpose, you take those 4 things, those, the thoughts, words, actions, and emotions, and you try to keep them aligned in one direction. And that direction is your purpose, which is spiritually focused.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I love that.
So you've got now your purpose, you've got your integrity, and now you can start looking at, well, why do I get out of integrity? And this is where shadow comes in, and understanding of shadow. The parts of myself that I hide, repress, or deny because I don't want other people to see them.
Yeah.
And now I can start, after that, I can start looking at my relationships and how I show up, how I create relationships. And then finally, the big one is flow. Right? Once you've done all those and you've mastered all those, and you become more into flow. And flow is that place that you've been talking about, that place that brings me back to bliss, that keeps me centered, grounded, and all the rest of it. And if I can keep all of those things active at any time, it becomes like a spiral that rises me and lifts me consciously up into the world.
Yeah. Absolutely. I really love this. And the awareness will help you keep an eye on the facets of it.
That's
and right. Yes, as humans, sometimes what happens in our external world kind of brings us out of kilter, and that's okay, so long as you have the awareness and you have the practices or whatever it takes to bring yourself back into your blissful state, or where you'd like to be at any given time. Then yes, absolutely. You describe something when you're going through the stages, which is similar to like a table that I have in the book. I make reference to Dr. Hawkins' what we call the scale of consciousness, the emotional scale of consciousness. And again, it comes back to that. And we do, when we have feelings or emotional states that we don't really enjoy, we do know, right? Whether we admit it or not, we do know. And, having that courage or the awareness to say, this is where I am. Actually, it's not where it's not a great place for me, and I know I could be better. Then having that awareness, taking it to courage, and then making the choice of what emotion would I want to experience instead, or takes us on that journey, and not doing it from just yourself perspective, which is why other things like the forgiveness and the compassion and everything comes in, because yes, you have your individualized self, but we are always connected to the oneness as well. So
That's exactly
you
right. Yep.
want to just go on your trajectory. The reason why you exist with others and other things and beings around us is because we are all meant to coexist, if that's the word. And so
Right.
I loved what you described there.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought up Dr. David R. Hawkins. I've got all of his books, and I have read, I think, most of them. I haven't read them all, but I love his perspectives on consciousness and his research. And, I don't agree with everything he says, but I think that he's definitely, and part of that agreement, this is another thing, by the way. The fact that I don't agree with it doesn't mean it's not right. It's just mean for now, it's not quite resonating with me.
Yeah,
maybe with deeper study, it will resonate, right? And it also could be that here's the situation. When you're trying to describe spiritual things in the 3D words that we have, it's really difficult to come up with words that encapsulate the meanings of some of the amazing things that can happen, right?
Yes. Yeah.
It's like this whole notion of oneness. For the longest time, I used to think, oh, that sounds like a great bumper sticker, and I actually thought that. Great bumper sticker. We're all one. Yeah, it sounds wonderful. But I never really experienced it as a truth until I had my major life-changing awakening event that happened in 2003. And in that event, it was a men's retreat that I was at. I had the experience of basically emptying out all the junk that I had been carrying around for years. Well, I'm sure I didn't empty out all of it, but I certainly got rid of most of it. And then what kind of came back in its place was this absolutely incredible and delicious golden blue light that just filled me with such love. And I could see that energy moving back and forth between myself and every other person in the room. I couldn't see their faces anymore, not their physical faces. I could just see their essences. And that was the moment when I realized, oh, this is what they mean when they say we're all one. So I had the visceral experience of it, and now I know without even the slightest doubt that it's absolutely true. And not only that, but when we say we're all one, it's not just one with other human beings. It's one with animals, plants, even inanimate objects like the table in front of me. Because it's all sourced from that same 0 point energy field, the Akashic field, the supreme consciousness field, the field of consciousness.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
Wow, what an experience.
It's a beautiful and delicious experience. I wish everybody could have it.
Yeah. And it doesn't negate the fact that, yes, we are also individual expressions of the same consciousness.
That's right.
And that individuality also requires us to be unique, because, we have a blueprint that no one else has. Right? And then it's kind of two opposite ends, right? But it still means the same. And it's incredible.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I call it a dichotomy, but that doesn't mean they have to be opposites.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
From one perspective, they may look like opposites, but from another perspective, they may look like the exact same thing.
Yeah. Just like we say, a drop and the ocean. So that individual drop is still part of the ocean, and the ocean, that whole big ocean, is also in the drop. Yeah.
That's right. That exactly right. Yeah. By the way, now I want to get to another little conversation that we haven't touched on yet. Well, I've mentioned it a couple of times, but I know that you do a lot of work with Akashic records, and I want to understand how that work that you've been doing on Akashic records kind of has informed the writing of this book and the creation of this creative balance, or whatever you call it, practice that you've done?
Yes. So a lot. What really informed, so in the book, I tell stories that, you know, some of my amazing clients gave me the opportunity to tell. Some are anonymized and others allowed me to mention them. But I felt that, you know, sometimes a client comes in and goes through, receives an Akashic Records consultation, you know, for different aspects of their lives. And sometimes this information can be very deep information, quite high, and then there is that integration piece, right? Because I started saying things that I assumed was kind of, I don't want to use the word normal, but kind of easy for me to understand. So kind of translating high level information into day-to-day living experience. An example would be someone will ask information about their purpose, or information about what is the underlying cause between the relationship between me and this person, and what are my resources to resolve it, that kind of thing. And they receive information. But I realized that whereas the information or the suggestions that they were receiving from the Akashic records was, for me, it was easy for me to implement, it wasn't necessarily that easy for them to implement. And so I then had to come up with the program, the mentoring program, to support them. And so the Create Balance program was born out of that, in terms of being able to help them integrate the information from the Akashic records into their day-to-day living. So for instance, if they received information about their purpose, what does that mean in terms of, you know, how they live their lives? And given that purpose is not necessarily what we do, but who we are being and everything, how do they translate that? And then there was that question of, sometimes there is a deeper level kind of work that came through as well in the Akashic records, in terms of, you mentioned shadow work, and so I was saying this to a friend of mine, who also works in the Akashic records. He's based in France. Her name's Laurence, and she was like, well, if you feel your clients need more hand-holding or more support, maybe you can kind of find a way of doing some specific, you know, programs to support them. So I took that information to sleep. And then in bed, I was, you know, like in a vision state, I experienced an aspect of myself kind of doing this Create Balance, in terms of bringing people back into that balanced state, emotionally, physically, mentally, and spiritually. And so I got up in the morning and I, you know, couldn't stop writing. So I wrote it. I quickly put that program into place with that healing balance scheme. You know, for me, I think my brain works both in the logical way as well as the intuitive way, the left and the right. And I felt that if I had a program that did that, it will help all learning styles, because we all learn differently. And so, yeah, so I put that program together. I started practicing it on myself, and I started seeing differences in terms of bringing myself into that balanced state, and then setting the intention to create what I want. And then you know, I started putting the information out in like some Facebook groups that I was in at that time. Well, I'm still in all of them, most of them. And I said, well, I'm piloting this program. This is what it's called. This is what it enables us to do. And I'm looking for some guinea pigs. Well, I didn't use those words, but I'm looking for people to have some complimentary sessions in exchange of testimonials. And I had some beautiful people, you know, saying yes to that. And I started practicing it. And then over time I refined it. But, you know, the initial practices, the responses and the feedback I got, and in fact, some of those are still in here, back in 2018. And so because the people also kind of reported back in terms of what they were seeing as a result of the healing. And this is all remote healing work anyway. So I'll tell them to lie down, I will sit and do it. And then I'll get on the phone after having gone through the emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual states and any information about how they can integrate this. And then I'll get on the phone or I'll get on Zoom, and then I'll describe it to them and then share with them anything else that they need to do for integration. But they will also give me back the feedback, say, when you were doing this within the hour, this is what was happening to me, or nothing happened, but I feel that state of bliss or whatever. And people experience energy work in different ways, as you know. So yeah, so that is how the Akashic Records informed the Create Balance program, and how the first part of the Create Balance program, I felt it was easy enough for people to use it as a way of self-healing and self-mentoring.
Yeah. So this is really quite an intense, well, I wouldn't say the word intense, comprehensive process that helps people experience holistic alignment with their purpose, really, and with the truth of who they really are. And that's ultimately, I think, what everybody wants, even though they might not necessarily describe what they want using those words.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, and it's not just their purpose, it's for bringing everything in their lives back into that balanced state. So it could be something they're looking to resolve, it could be relationships, it could be finances, it could be, any state that they want to resolve. Because when you are in that balanced state, you can set the intention and create what you want to create, and bring that happier state. So yes, it could be part of purpose, but it could be anything else that you want to experience that will make you feel you're back in your balanced, happy state.
Right. And this is a funny thing. I've noticed for myself, I've had plenty of experiences in my life where I felt happy. I was in a state of pleasure. I was in a state of enjoyment. But nothing really makes me truly happier than knowing the truth of who I really am and living in an authentic way that expresses that truth in the world.
Yeah.
Ever since I've learned that, and like I said, because of that experience in 2003, having that visceral experience of first of all, knowing who I really am and feeling that sense of oneness with other people, I realized that there is nothing at all that's more important than that. Nothing for me anyway. Maybe other people will have a different experience, but I know for me, there's nothing more important than that. And when I'm in that place, when I feel, when I bring myself, I won't say, it's not like it just magically happens. I give myself permission and I invite myself back to connect with the truth of who I am. When I do that, I just naturally connect to that state of grace and bliss and beauty and magnificence that's just there.
Yeah. I agree. And then, then you go, you can then look at how you express this, in the happier state, the enjoyment of pleasure, the dancing, the singing, whatever it is. But yeah, so like I said, towards the end of the book, it decided to turn into a fiction, and I brought in another new practice, which is about, now that you have brought yourself into balance, how do you design your desired life experiences? And pleasure.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
And pleasure is part of that. So it's good that you mentioned that. Yeah.
And so this is all really beautiful. And how do you think that this applies to people who are on a path of conscious, spiritual, or essential growth? I guess is the right term. Conscious evolution in terms of, evolution of consciousness. There you go.
I think it's really good because, like I said, it's a self-mentoring and a self-healing tool as needed. And I will give you an example. So when I did the launch of the book, I did have a group of people that I initially sent the book to read, so that they can, attend the launch with their experiences as a result of reading the book. And one of the ladies said, as she read the book and practiced it, and she said, I feel this book was so written for me. And and
That's always great. Yeah.
I know. And then when, and then she said, actually, as and then she said, I'm almost done, but it's almost like I don't want to finish, because it's that kind of book. I don't want it to finish. I was like, okay, well, you may have to write a few more chapters to the book. I was joking.
Yeah, that's great. I like that.
Yeah, and then she went, and then she came back. Oh, I thought I had a few more chapters, but I haven't. I was actually closer to the end than I thought. Then she said to me, I really resonate with Akiko, which is the fictional character towards the end of the book, in that part where I talk about creating your desired life experiences, because it follows Akiko's story. And she said, it's really made me look at how much I am, in a way, neglecting my self-love, or something along those lines. And as a result, I have started doing salsa lessons. And
Nice.
so yeah, and then she said, yesterday I went out, and I went to a bar, and I actually, really had fun. And for a long time I haven't been there, because blah blah blah. And actually I've signed up for salsa lessons, and in all those kind of things. But one thing that I also want to share was that she said she is not a big reader. She said most books, take her to sleep. So to avoid sleeping, reading this before bedtime, which meant that she was going to sleep, she decided to read it when she comes out of bed in the morning, or read it as soon as she gets up, before getting out of bed. And she said what was fascinating was, it felt that the book, what she read every day before she got out, was kind of appearing, or it is almost like the book was guiding her through her day. She was integrating what she had read into her daily experiences. And I was very surprised by that. But it's also one of the intentions, because I genuinely wanted this book to be a mentor and a guide, and I don't want to say a tool, a practice for people. And I feel that it will keep coming back to your question, what does it mean for people on a self-transformation journey, a spiritual growth journey, a personal growth journey? I feel that no matter where your level is, it will meet you at your point of need. And as you go on a journey, it will also, you will read it a second time and hear it a bit differently than you did the first time, if you see what I mean. So it will keep guiding you.
Right. I found your book on Amazon here, and I'm going to drop the link.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, let me, I just want to clean up this link. I don't need all that junk at the end.
I have a shorter link, but yeah, carry on. I
Hang
also, just in case anyone.
Sorry, I'm still here.
Well,
there we go. Got it. Now I'm coming back. I'm going to drop it in the chat here.
Yes. Thank you.
There you go. So there's Maggie's book. It's called The One Secret to Happiness, and everything about it sounds fantastic. I'm going to be ordering a copy for myself here. But anyway, I just want to say thank you so much for being here today, Maggie. I mean, it's just been a pleasure, as always, sharing space with you. Did you have anything else that you wanted to share? Any special words or final words that you want to share? Oh, you did mention that you had a gift that you wanted people to know about. Can you, do you have the link for that? Can we put that in the chat as well?
Yeah, let me quickly. Okay.
The one secret to happiness: discover your innate ability to take life to the next level.
So let me put this in here. So when you go into this link on my website, which is the page for the book anyway, you will be able to access the book in addition to a link that gives you access to
I see that. Updates and resources. Yeah. Right. Got it. All right. Well, I'll make sure that appears on my website when we complete this and I get the recording. But again, I just want to say thank you so much for being here today, Maggie. Did you have any final words that you wanted to share for people as we close out this session?
So here is what I'm going to say, especially for those who listen to David's beautiful conversations. We are all on a journey of growth and transformation, and I feel that there is no one better than yourself to really take you on this journey. And someone said before that your own hands or your own ability to heal yourself is sometimes stronger than anyone else's. Yes, sometimes you get led to someone to support you with your own personal growth work, but if you can take responsibility to do more of that for yourself, the impact is stronger than anything else. And that is one intention that I wanted this book to do for people. And so just have trust in yourself that you have the ability within yourself to bring yourself into your innate state of balance, true, consistent happiness. And you have the tools to support you, or you have the practices to support you, and the people to support you as needed.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much, Maggie. Again, just a real pleasure to spend time here with you today. And friends, I hope you learn to redefine happiness on your own terms. Achieve some greater balance and align with your true self. And remember, you can do all that by discovering the deep, consistent happiness that comes from within. Thank you all for watching today's program. Remember, you can catch the recordings of this and every other episode on my website at lifemasterytv.com. And before we close out, I invite you to remember to practice my life mastery mantra every single day. It's real simple, and it goes like this. I gratefully forgive the imperfect being I have been in the past. I gratefully accept the magnificent being I am right now. I gratefully welcome the evolved being I am becoming in each new moment. Till we meet again, my name is David McLeod. I'm your Life Mastery Coach, wishing you love, light, and blessings on your continuing journey. See you next time on Life Mastery TV. Bye-bye.